Anyway, I'm Gore-Tex inside now to match my rain gear.
Yeah, I sold those.
Cook Medical?
No, I worked directly for Gore-Tex.
No, did you?
Yeah. So now your rain gear and you can communicate, huh?
Right.
I keep
He was saying something about environmental
Good idea.
points. That was that in here? I had to stop by. Something about. Oh, he's saying the recommendation.
Did you?
Okay. This is the one.
Well, I've got 0718.
I don't like this website.
What's that?
I don't like this board pack website.
I'm not worried about it either. Getting more used to it. I'm not worried.
Deep into the pool. Good for you. No, it's good. This is good. This is good.
I just don't know. I was out there.
I think I'm starting to read this.
Okay, on the first page of that, that's where that thing
Yeah.
is.
People are not too happy.
You want to say that? You want me to? Good evening, everyone. Testing, can you hear me out there? Good. Welcome. In the unlikely event some of you are coming to your first planning meeting, I thought I'd go over a few things. I see some of you have been to planning meetings before. Can everybody hear me all right? I see a young lady leaning towards me. Not you, dear, the one next to you. Not the one in the black, the one in the purple. Can you hear me? Okay, thank you. We have to follow some rules here. We're a government branch. We work for the city. We're appointed by the mayor. And we are endowed to make good things for the city. It's not a popularity contest, and we don't take sides. What we're here to do is do the right thing for all members of the city, and that includes people that like to develop housing in the city of Warsaw. Where would we live if we didn't do that sometimes, right? So let's keep an open mind, and we'll progress through this as smoothly as we can. I'm just going to take a wild guess, and that one of the two agenda items is represented by council tonight. I'm going to also assume that that person will probably lead off with most of the comments. I would like everyone to listen to Justin. Justin, put your hand up, please, as he goes through the preliminary document that we're going to rule on tonight. And I want to reemphasize the word preliminary. This is the first step in a long process. So let's keep that in mind as well. Now, what we'll do is he'll read the motions as they sit before us. We will ask if there's any comments from the Planning Commission. Then we'll open it up for those who would like to speak in favor of the petition. We will then ask for those in opposition. I know all of you would like to talk, well, maybe not all of you, but I think council will probably hit most of the high points tonight for you. All of you are welcome to comment. We just like to keep it to a meeting relatively compact, if at all possible. So thank you much. I see a couple of veterans out there. Thank you guys for serving. Happy Flag Day, and thank you for your service. With that, we will start. Justin, we're going to do the O2 first, please, sir. Oh, the minutes. I'm sorry. Good point. Minutes. Everybody read the minutes? Yes, sir.
I have read and reviewed last month's minutes. I see no corrections or errors, and recommend approval.
Motion by Jim, seconded by Rick. All those in favor?
Aye.
The minutes pass. Sorry, Justin, you can go now, please.
Okay, so this is the preliminary and final plat for the Shady View subdivision.
Can everybody hear him? I don't know if your mic's on.
Let me try. That's on.
We'll get closer to it.
Okay. So we have the preliminary and final plat for the Shady View subdivision. It has been submitted in a timely fashion and reviewed for its conformity to the subdivision control ordinance. The proposed plat meets the development standards for a subdivision within an R1 zoning district. This plat is a simple subdivision and reconfiguration of 2 lots to create 3, with an average lot size of about 14,000 square feet. A 10-foot sanitary easement has been set along the south side of Lot 1 and access to provide sewer access to Lot 2. Lot 2 and 3 have been shifted to the north by 20 feet to remove them from the right-of-way. So those issues have been addressed on this plat. Since this subdivision does not include any additional public infrastructure, I recommend that the Plan Commission can grant preliminary and final approval for this plat as presented.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions or comments from the commission? Very good. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to speak in favor of this position? Anybody in opposition? We'll close the meeting to the public. Any further comments or questions?
This is this one right here?
No, this is the second one.
Oh, okay, I got you.
We flipped it. It's this one.
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we approve the preliminary plat.
Thank you. So a motion by Diane.
Second.
Seconded by Jim Gast. All those in favor? Aye. Anyone in opposition?
I'll
That
make,
passes. Go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we suspend the rules to vote on the final plat.
So motion, seconded.
Second.
Jeff Gross, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye. I'll make a motion that we approve the final plat.
Second.
Seconded James. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Anyone in opposition? That passes. Thank you very much. Justin, we'll go to the event of the evening.
All right.
All right. Hey, Justin, before we get started, there's a disclosure that I believe I need to make. So as the city attorney for Warsaw, I also am a partner at Rock Hill Pinnock Law Firm here in town. And over the years, we've represented one of the parties that is part of this next action, Skyline Builders. I've never personally represented anyone from Skyline Builders. And as far as this project goes, no one from my office is involved with the project from Rock Hill Pinnock. But I did want to disclose to all of you who may be interested that Rock Hill Pinnock has had a relationship in the past with Skyline Builders and other matters. We very well may have a relationship in the future with Skyline Builders on other matters, but I'm not involved with this. My office is not involved in this, but I wanted to disclose that to everybody out there. I don't believe it's a conflict for me to advise this panel tonight.
I disagree. I think that's problematic.
And you are?
I'm Joanne Colby. I'm sorry. I'm an attorney, and I am offering that comment unsolicited, but I would say that's problematic. As the city attorney, I think that any past representation, particularly in terms of development and knowing that this is the builder and that there's a substantial amount of dispute that will be surrounding the situation, I think that's problematic.
I understand the word problematic, but I don't think it's going to interfere with tonight's proceedings. How's that?
I've made my record known.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So noted. All right. With that, Justin, would you go ahead and read your analysis, please?
Yes, so the petitioner for the Springfield subdivision is requesting to subdivide a 14.98 acre tract of land into 48 lots with an average lot size of 0.31 acres. The preliminary plat for this subdivision has been submitted in a timely fashion and reviewed for its conformity to the subdivision control ordinance. The proposed stormwater management method and the proposed connection to the city sewer system have been reviewed and approved by the city engineer. And again, this is just the preliminary phase of the project, so there's not a lot of detail, but it does appear to be sufficient from the city's engineering standpoint. Emergency Services have reviewed the access roads leading back to the proposed subdivision and have no issues with accessing either the existing Spring Hill development or the proposed Springfield development. If future issues arise related to traffic safety, they can be brought to the Traffic Safety Commission and reviewed at that time. The proposed lots meet the development standards for a subdivision within an R1 zoning district. Those are listed below.
Perhaps it would help to read those for those
Yeah, I
people
think
that
in
are
this
not.
case, Justin, go ahead and go through that.
So they're 8,700 square foot minimum lot size. The setbacks are 25 foot for the front, 25 foot for the rear, and 7 feet for the side yards, with a maximum lot coverage of 45%. Since the proposed subdivision meets or exceeds all of the requirements set forth by the city's municipal code, I recommend that you grant approval for the preliminary plat of the Springfield subdivision.
Thank you, Justin. Before we open it up, any questions or comments from the commission? All right, with that, we will open it up to the public. When anyone would like to address us, we'd like you to come to that podium, or you can be at your seat if you've got a mic, which I see you do, Joanne. Thank you for introducing yourself, by the way. We'd like to know who you are for the press, and so we can address you back. So provide your name, and then we'll go through the comments, and we'll try to keep it somewhat efficient if we can. Go ahead.
And I am here on behalf of the neighbors who are the adjacent landowners, and they've been listed on the material that you've been supplied in advance of this meeting. I prepared.
Joanne, can you use the mic?
Oh,
Because
sure.
I'm listening through the,
Right, you're listening.
yes.
I'm
Thank you.
otherwise pretty loud, but you need to hear it through,
That's
through your Bluetooth, right?
yes.
Is
Joanne?
that better?
Yes.
Sorry, I thought I made it clear. We're going to take the people that are in favor of this. Are you possibly in favor?
Oh,
of
no,
it?
I'm not. I'm not in favor of it, so.
I was just guessing that you might not be.
You're very astute.
But you're very eager and you're ready to go, I can tell.
I am eager.
I'm glad I ate dinner before I got here tonight. All right, with that, is there anyone within the sound of my voice that's in favor of this? I'm going to guess yes, sir, there you are. Okay. I was about ready to pass it on. And you are?
Yeah, I'm Tim Merchant with Skyline Builders. So yeah, we're the ones bringing the subdivision forward. For the most part, I think, obviously, not everybody's in agreement with what we want to do. I guess we've been in meetings with the city for quite a few years now, and there's been a lot of discussion how much we need affordable housing. And we were part of Tuscany on the other side of town, which is similar lots, and it went very well. They sold out in a matter of a couple years. Similar lot sizes. Those houses are in the values. The houses we've sold in the last year, I think, are in the 245 to 325 range of those houses. Now, we haven't gotten through to say exactly what we're going to do here, but it's a similar setup. And I think I looked Spring Hill in the last year. Values that sold in Spring Hill are 228 to 310. So we're actually a little higher value-wise than what's sold in Spring Hill in the last year. And we've been doing this for a while, 25 years. We've done parade houses around here, and we'd love.
I don't think your mic's working. Or I can't hear.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. There you go. So.
Don't start over.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should have said something earlier.
That's all right. So, we've done a lot of, we do a lot of big houses. We do custom houses up to a whole lot, but millions. But the area, that's not what Warsaw wants or needs, it seems, at the moment. And everybody knows that orthopedics, that's what they're really screaming for. So that's what we designed to put in here. That's what's sold as far as specs. We wish it was like it was 15 years ago. We used to do a lot of, half-acre lots. We developed half-acre lots. It's just now that, there's a lot of big builders that come in from out of town, and we have to compete with them, and that's where the price range is now. It's not like we can go into this and say we're going to cut half of these lots out to make these lots twice the size and be able to do it. It doesn't work financially to say we're going to do 24 lots in there with sewers and city sidewalks and all the other amenities. And as you know, all the lumber and everything else has gone up immensely lately, so it's difficult just to get a house that's affordable, much less, increasing lot sizes. So, for the most part, that's why it is what it is. That's kind of what it needs to be for us to be able to make it feasible. And, we built nice houses over the years, and that's our goal. But, so that's basically where we're coming from.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to speak in favor of the petition? With that, we will now open it to the opposition.
And I think that is directed at me. I'm Joanne Colby, and I am here on behalf of the adjacent landowners who have been listed on the submission that was given to you prior to the time that we started this evening. I'm also here on behalf of the Spring Hill neighbors. And if we could just have everyone raise your hand if you live in Spring Hill.
How about if you know someone?
I think that you can see that we're out in force because we have concerns not only that are emotional about the aesthetic values that we associate with our neighborhood and with the health of the lake, but we have real concerns that we've spent as much time as we could in the 2 weeks or so that we've had notice of the development to sit down and go through these things. And I want you to know what those things are, because that's where I, as an attorney, have focused my attention. One is the comprehensive plan. And I think we have, all of us, familiarity with that. And I have observed in my submission that the goals of the comprehensive plan have been recognized and codified within Appendix A, which is the ordinance for the subdivisions. And I point that out because typically a comprehensive plan, or often a comprehensive plan for a city, will simply set forth precatory or wish kind of language. This is what we want. This is what our guidelines are. But it's very important to observe that that's not what Warsaw has done. They've taken the comprehensive plan and codified it, and that's part of the subdivision development ordinances, and that's part of what's going to be required of the developer. And I want to just make a couple of remarks about the developer, and all of us, I think, are in agreement on this. We think this developer does great work. It's clearly not personal. 2, we all recognize Warsaw needs affordable housing. 3, we all support Warsaw, want it to grow. We all have invested in Warsaw and its comprehensive plan. And that's where we're coming from. We are not fighting the economic growth or the desire for Warsaw to develop. We just believe that this is not the appropriate spot for this development to be located for reasons that are in the ordinance. So with that, Justin, I think it's important if we can see this area. Can we see?
Let me see.
Is there a picture, Justin, of just the area without the actual plan?
Can you put the screen down so we can turn around?
Justin, you're going to have it on both screens. We get to look at that one, and you can look at this one. Do what?
area where the development is would be proposed. So this is the development when they want to get back to the land. You can minimize this window and go back and forth.
Now, is there a picture of this without the plan? Is there a picture of this with just without the actual plan? Do you have a picture of the?
Well, this would be
I understand. I just meant a regular photograph. I understand. You're using GIS. Do you have a picture?
It's in your outline. Yes, the state ones, the last page up on the state. Yep.
Okay, I really meant just a, actual photograph. Okay, the reason why I'm asking if we have just a regular photograph of this area is, and this area I want you all to know is called Byers Rise. Originally, that whole area was part of the Byer Farm, and this name is left from that. Byers Rise, historically, then as the area grew, the Byer Farm was broken up. We all have heard different name usage in our community of the Byer family name. That name has stuck with that particular lot, although that 15-acre parcel was ultimately sold to at least two owners, and all of you behind me I know are going to correct me because I'm not yet a 30-year neighbor in Spring Hill. I'm only 20 years there. That Mr. Grossnickel and his wife and the Levin family purchased that property along with a couple of other Spring Hill owners for the purpose of preserving that, protecting it from being built. That stayed in the family until the present time, and now there is one owner, the son, Bruce Grossnickel. He apparently has elected to sign a contract subject to the approval of the plan to have this developed. We are not carrying a torch for the Levin family or for the Grossnickel family in terms of preserving that. We are concerned that this is, from a topographical point of view, the topography of this land, and this is why it's important to understand that the elevation of Byers Rise is at least 30 feet higher than all of the properties below that. I can't tell from the plan whether or not there can be leveling off to the point where the kind of runoff, and I'm going to admit I'm not a water engineer, I only know that what's up must come down. I do know from looking at this plan and having our engineer, who has not had sufficient time to do anything other than to give me a desktop opinion, and I've specified that in my summary, that this is not sufficient. The water detention area in Lot A of the plan, the absence of an easement on the side of the plan that I believe is lots 1 through 18. Swales that I think appear on the west side. Am I correct? On the west side? Northwest side. And perhaps swales on the east side, or we don't know. They're not referenced. That's it. What we know from our engineer, who, as I will acknowledge, we've only had a chance to share this with him. I've spoken with him on the phone. He gave me the math that he needs to be able to calculate whether or not this detention area is sufficient. He knows from the appearance of the development that it's about an acre, and that's not sufficient for the number of homes and the displacement of water that will come from 48 homes in the area. Now, I want to talk for a minute also about the difference in the number of homes, 48 in this development, correct?
Justin?
I think I'm correct on that. There are, and again, my gallery here will correct me, 76 homes in Spring Hill. That creates a 67% increase in the homes that will be traversing our one entrance into the neighborhood, which is a half a mile from the entrance to Buyer Road, which will be extended. That will increase traffic significantly. Have I performed a traffic study? No. Needs to be done. That's very significant. We also don't believe that the infrastructure is able to handle that. I'm not going to even get to the aesthetics of what will happen when you take an increase in traffic and put that in a neighborhood where there is no outlet, with the expectation there's no outlet. That's why in our neighborhood, when you come into the neighborhood, you think, what a lovely park-like area where, and I'm not just waxing poetic, where truly every day there is a parade past my house, which is toward the entrance of the neighborhood. I'm in the old Kerr house. Some of you older folks will know which house that is. I'm next to the Dalton Estate, which is, there's the owner of the renovated Dalton Estate, a home that fell into disrepair. And I don't know where we gathered the data that the average price of homes in the neighborhood is $200 to $250. I think that was the general characterization. We have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars in our homes, either stupidly, if our home is only worth $200,000, or with the idea that the whole neighborhood is increasing. And this is where, sorry, Jeff, I'm going to get touchy-feely. He always tells me, now don't get too touchy-feely.
I didn't use that. That's okay.
Just a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah.
But I am going to tell you that congruity of neighborhoods, and this is where the aesthetics of the neighborhood is very important. It is important, and this is not a diminution of the quality of a skyline-built home. It is important that there be a congruity of the aesthetics in these neighborhoods. And when there is not, that causes a concern for us and all of the value that we have put into our homes. And I can assure you the hundreds of thousands of dollars, the millions probably if we add it up. Now, nobody has done a study of the number of homes purchased in Spring Hill over the last 10 years. We can tell you anecdotally that there are many more young people who have come into this neighborhood and have said, we want this. We want to be able to take our baby carriage down the side of the road. There are no sidewalks. So it needs to be safe to be walking on that side of the road. And since it ends, it just doesn't go anywhere, there's one in and one out, then pretty much you know or hope the people going by know who you are and they're going to slow down. We want those bicyclists, we want those walkers. We do not want to turn Spring Hill Road into a thoroughfare that still doesn't go anywhere, but will become a thoroughfare by that much increase in traffic. I do say we need a traffic study. We've had no time to do that. We need an environmental study. I need my engineer to finish what we think are deficiencies in the topography of this land as it relates to runoff. I have characterized that in my summary that the runoff, I don't believe, although we can certainly refer to our builder, I don't believe there are any drains on Buyer Road that are planned for in what we've been provided by the builder. So imagine that we've got 48 homes with runoff from the footprint of each home and the driveways of each home. Imagine it is a significant storm, a gully washer, right? And it will flow down. Look at the plan and see where that will go. In a minute here, we're going to hear from the Pike Lake Conservation folks through Mr. Parker. He'll talk about why that's significant and why we need an environmental impact study, how the health of the lake should be, again, one of the city's priorities. In our comprehensive plan, there is reference to the uniqueness of Warsaw because of all of the lakes. They have to be preserved. So I just want to, I'm trying to be quick because I know others want to speak as well. So we've talked about the concerns about incongruity. Is this neighborhood, and I want to make some specific remarks about congruity. That is something that is in the ordinance. There are references to congruity in the comprehensive plan. Again, that's been codified through our subdivision ordinance. When we talk about congruity, it is not just are we looking at lot size, although that's a factor. The lot size in this proposed development is, I think, basically a quarter acre. The average lot size in Spring Hill is 0.91 acres. The average square foot for each home in Spring Hill Acres is 2,450. Now, by just looking at the setbacks of the home, the area that we're talking about, the quarter acre, and the necessary setbacks, I've estimated that the homes that are going to be put in have to be around 1,400 square feet. I'm guessing no bigger than that. There just isn't enough room. That has a distinctively different feel. And again, I'm going to talk about aesthetics for a moment. I also don't believe that the plan is one that would afford what we have in Spring Hill, which is homes that are all bespoke. Every one is different. They were all custom built. I've attached two. One is the Gross Nickel home, has the bay window in the front, and the other is the Levin home. I'm a stuff snob. I read Architectural Digest, and I love things, and I love beautiful architecture. These homes would be in that magazine. This is what, I haven't taken a picture of our home. This is what I want my home to look at and what I have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to make it look that way. That is what, if you go through the whole neighborhood, you will see immaculate lawns, big lawns, green lawns, families out taking care of their homes. And I'm not suggesting by any means that an affordable home brings with it necessarily somebody who doesn't care about the home. I'm talking about the difference between homes that are designed to be fairly uniform on a quarter acre lot and the difference in the aesthetic result that will bring in comparison to Spring Hill. We can't say it's a different development. It goes right through our area. Anybody looking at it is going to say, well, this is part of Spring Hill. It's just an extension from it. That causes us concern. We also believe, based upon the ordinances, that's not what we want. We said no. We want congruency. We also have concerns that the lake, with any of that runoff that we're talking about, that which is up must come down. If there are deficiencies in this water detention and the water handling where the stormwater goes, you will see in the attachments from Nate Bosch, you will see that we've attached some material from Nate Bosch. He's our conservationist at Grace College. And some of the economic data associated with that Pike Lake is our most endangered lake. It is on the precipice. I can't tell you because I'm not an environmental engineer and we haven't had an environmental impact study done. I can't tell you what it will take. I can tell you that we have data that shows us if this lake is pushed over the edge and is not a viable lake, it will take property values down in Byers Rise, if it's approved, in Spring Hill, and in the whole community around, all of the homes around the lake. We know this because it happened in St. Mary's, Ohio, where the lake there became unusable. It was overcome by algae. It was an unsafe lake. It was unsafe. It couldn't fish, couldn't boat, couldn't swim. It took property values of all of the homes around that lake down by 50%. That community has now spent $30 million to try to remediate that lake, to bring it back to good health. That's where Pike Lake is, or it's right on the edge. So we could spend $30 million in a few years, or we could not spend $30 million now and help these developers find another place to build.
I assume that concludes your comments.
It does, unless there is anything that my helper here, we wore blue together, intentionally, not at all.
That was nice of you. Subtle.
Yeah, not at all. Although I will say that royal blue is supposed to engorge the brain with blood, so it's to get us all thinking, right?
Well, it's a good thing the police officer's here then, isn't it?
There you go.
Thank you, officer.
That's why. That's why. And I don't know that I've just highlighted everything. I have not gone into the ordinance references that's in all of the written material where it's tied to the ordinances. And then I think that one of our adjacent homeowners, Holly Campbell, sitting to my right, has some comments she'd like to make. And then I think Mr. Parker has some comments about the health of the lake. And his Pike Lake Association is much more familiar with the data than I am.
Actually, at this time, I would like to go ahead and submit to you guys far more
Could
than
you
100.
Start with your name, please.
My name is Holly Campbell. I am a resident of Spring Hill. But I wanted just to present to you guys, I thought this would be an opportunity, over 100 signed letters in opposition to this. And these are not just residents of Spring Hill. These are other Warsaw residents who support our opposition because they know the neighborhood is a legendary neighborhood, and they are definitely in support of us and would like to see a development perhaps somewhere else in Warsaw for sure, so we can all have the great homes that we all want. Before I make my statement and everything, I think that I should have Nick come up and make his presentation to you guys, and then I'll follow up after him. Scott, sorry.
So you don't want me to call you Nick?
Preferably not today.
And your name is?
I am Scott Parker. I am not a resident of Spring Hill. I am the Pike Lake Association's president, and I'm just here to approach it from the environmental aspect, just to tell you a little bit about what's been going on, because we have been working not only with the county, but also with the city on making this improvement. And so I just want to give you a bit of a history of what's going on, and just the things we want to make sure that happens if this goes forward. If it doesn't, we want to make sure that you have a good understanding of what's happening. Does that make sense? Okay. So not only am I the president of the Pike Lake Association, but I'm also a certified environmental auditor. I've been working in environmental issues for, 35 years now. So it's been a little while. Our association is merely concerned with the protection of the lake. As you've heard, that in a few years ago, it was stated that it's on the precipice. There's a nice attachment with the remonstrance that was sent to you that shows you that one of the ways that we measure that quality is through how well you can see, and how dirty or how murky it is. And you will look and see that it is very difficult to see in our lake because it is full of sediment. And part of the reason of that is because through planning from previous city and county officials, our lake receives approximately 23,500 acres of runoff. Now, our tiny little lake, if you want to kind of get an idea of what that balances into, Winona Lake, which is significantly larger, only gets 800 acres of runoff. So our tiny little lake is basically an extension of the stormwater system. And with that, over the years, this lake that is 50% owned by the city, has 3 major parks on it, has a nature trail on it. We're trying to work as residents of the lake as a whole to restore. We've been working with the Watershed Foundation, the Lilly Foundation, Grace College, the Indiana Department of Revenue, or not revenue, but sorry, the DNR, right? The revenue has already pecked us because they wanted to see where our taxes were.
They'll
so
be
we've
in there.
had that. All right. So what we're saying is in the last 2 years as I've been president, we've been working on a number of projects. We've spent nearly $100,000, mostly in grant money from the DNR, but also some out of actual taxpayers' own pockets. To kind of give you an idea of one of the projects that we're currently working on right now is if you take a look at this map that you can see on the wall, and if you can all see where it says Jenny Lynn, and there's that nice little wide channel, almost kind of looks like a wooden spoon, if for those of you who had your mom hit you with a wooden spoon, right? Okay? That is where Deeds Creek dumps in, and that's where not only do waters from the city run in significantly, but also from the county, and actually even from Whitley County makes its way into us from that creek. Thank you. And that little part that's still green as opposed to the ground line there, just the round part right there, we currently have an estimate of about $200,000 just to dredge that little spot, okay? And we're not even beginning that part of the project yet because we're currently working with a vendor on stabilizing the entire Deeds Creek. Now, the city believes that this is pretty important because they're not only a partner with us on that, and they have contributed 10% of that project with us, but they are also spent city monies on shoring up the lake. If you go around by the park where the beach is, and if you look just south of that, you can see all of the work that the city has done to try to protect, to keep that from having runoff of all of the particulate. And so basically, I am just simply here to say, if you're going to have this development, it was sort of said earlier, but you have to understand that the roads, the roofs, the driveways are going to take the acreage that's there that's currently somewhat soaking, and yes, it does run down, but at least has a chance to get into the ground. You're taking away 50% of that. And all that'll just run quicker somewhere, whether you put in a stormwater collection system that the city takes, whether you're putting in a retention pond, unless you have that large enough, you're just going to run all of that stuff basically to the west, right at a Deeds Creek, and then we're going to be fighting all that extra particulate making its way in. Again, we believe as residents of the Pike Lake, and at least I do, and I preach this every time I have an association meeting, this is the hidden gem. I got to be real honest, there's a lot of residents that don't even realize that Pike Lake is part of Warsaw. Okay? But you guys have 3 beautiful parks on there. You own 50%, you have a beautiful trail. We are trying to bring it back. There are a lot of old timers that I've talked to from all over around the county that say, I remember all the fishing and how you could see 20 feet down, and you know, if you go just off the beach, and that's 20 feet right off the beach after you get just past that nice pier you guys have out there, you can only see about 18 inches under the water. And so that is all I'm coming to you is saying, take care of the environmental part no matter what decision you make, because that's too critical. If we get lots of runoff, and we as an association are doing what we can, and we appreciate the past support of the city, both from the Parks Department and from the Stormwater Utility. But we're just simply asking that you ensure that aspect is being handled appropriately. Thank you. Appreciate your time.
I believe you'd like to speak again. If I'm keeping this in order or not, I don't know. I'm trying.
As I said, my name is Holly Campbell. My husband and I recently moved to Spring Hill neighborhood in 2018. Yes, we were one of those homes that purchased in the low 2s. However, the last time I had my house appraised, it was just under $300,000. That's because we put a lot of renovation into it. So I just want to add that to there. In my former life, I was a community development planner, so my experience is looking at the long-term effects of development. We have presented a number of documented and legal objections to the underlying why this proposed development is not a good fit for the site. But something that is often missed when considering development is the true implications that it will have on the quality of life for residents. The facts are that this development will cut right through Spring Hill neighborhood and increasing traffic by 67%, as we have noted. The average single home produces 10 trips per day between personal vehicles, deliveries, and visitors. That would put the Spring Hill neighborhood currently at 700 trips per day. Considering Spring Hill has received a surge of young families, as we have noted to you, moving into our neighborhood, it would align quite accurately with these average numbers. And according to a study published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers Journal, traffic coming in and out of a neighborhood is categorized as acceptable when it ranges between 600 and 1,200 daily trips per day. Adding the additional 48 homes to the 76 homes in the neighborhood right now would put Spring Hill neighborhood precariously close to a poor rating of anything over 1,200 daily trips per day. This increase in traffic will diminish the walkability of the neighborhood and essentially isolate us from being able to connect to the trailhead, which is just over there by the hospital. This would be the exact opposite of the objective in the Comprehensive Plan 2.4, work with isolated residential development to get connected to city-wide systems and sidewalks and trails. In addition to the increased traffic through Spring Hill, the other detriment to this proposed development on quality of life is the proximity to US 30, which is categorized as a limited highway according to your comprehensive plan. As Joanne stated, in Objective 1.8 states to promote new residential development away from highway noise. This is because study after study has shown that heavy truck traffic produces noise levels in excess of 60 decibels. And the threshold for normal hearing is 20 decibels. So imagine, if you will, the constant exposure to elevated noise levels due to living right by the highway, when studies show that this increases heart rates and interrupts concentration. One other major factor to the quality of life of living by highways is the effect that the pollution has on residents. According to the National Lung Association, the Health Effects Institute published a major review that stated children living along highways had increased childhood asthma, impaired lung functions, increased cardiovascular disease, and cardiovascular morbidity. It was determined that families living within 300 to 500 meters of a highway were the most affected. Now, a quick measurement on your GIS system will show you that the closest house proposed in this development is about 90 meters away from US 30, and the farthest is about 430 meters. Now, many can look around quickly, and we all know Warsaw, definitely, especially driving down US 30. There are a number of neighborhoods that are within close proximity of US 30, and we, Spring Hill, are also somewhat close to that 500-meter range. However, we all know that the dynamics and the levels of traffic have changed significantly since those neighborhoods were constructed. And we can't change the past, but you can make a better informed decision on how development will impact the quality of life, not only for the residents of Spring Hill neighborhood, but also the residents that you're going to encourage to live in this proposed development. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, again, I'd like to remind everybody that this is the preliminary, not the final. And the rules of engagement for at least this commission are fairly well spelled out. Excellent points. We're all in favor of it. I know several of you out there. I also know people that own homes on Pike. It's a wonderful, wonderful jewel, as someone just described. And we like to keep it that way. But again, we've got to listen to what we've got to work with in the preliminary plot, which is, what do we do with it now at this point? Scott, did you want to make any comments? I thought I'd ask you.
Well, I think you're dead on in the preliminary thing. You know, some of these studies that they're asking for, I know that the city engineer looked at some of the preliminary numbers and was satisfied preliminarily that it could happen, that it could work. I think you're stuck with currently, if they check the boxes of the ordinances at this point, then is likely to be approved preliminarily until there's more study and more information made. The real battles at the final approval process, when everybody's had their opportunities to have the battles of the engineers and for
And the studies are completed.
yeah, for each side to present whether or not there's going to be a wastewater or stormwater problem, whether or not there's going to be a traffic problem or not a traffic problem. As Joanne stated previously, you know, it appears their side had a couple weeks to look at it. Obviously, they don't have data to accurately remonstrate with numbers, and likely the developer hasn't spent all the money to accurately reflect what actually will happen, because they need preliminary approval before they move forward with that. So I'd say at this point it's premature to have the big battle until everybody has their experts in line, and that's probably what would happen down the road. But I think, as you've seen by all the other legal precedent, that if they preliminarily check the boxes, that it's likely that you should approve the preliminary plat.
Yes, you're still allowed to talk. I haven't shut it off to the public yet.
Two questions in regard to that, Scott. Everybody refers to this, or have the boxes been checked for the developer to put it to the next phase, which may be for allowing us to get the necessary studies completed that we want to get done. Is it problematic that this is next to a highway? That's contrary to the comprehensive plan. Shouldn't be next to a highway. 1.8. It does not, none of these homes will be on city water. Also contrary to the comprehensive plan. What are those boxes that, what did you say? Yes, that's true. There are multiple references to being on city utilities. How are those boxes checked? Because those are, they can't be remediated. We can't take the highway away.
No, we can't move the highway.
And
That's a problem.
we can't hook it up with, yeah, it's a problem, but I don't see how you can say there's a box checked when we can't move the highway.
Well, I think we want to be cautious about using boxed checks
Okay?
and the comprehensive plan as a complete guide and how we operate as a city.
It isn't a guide. It's been codified.
I understood what you said.
Section 3.1 of the ordinance, it says the subdivision shall conform to the comprehensive plan. It's not may, it's shall.
It shall conform to the comprehensive plan. And you're saying because it's too close to the highway, it can't?
It's what the comprehensive plan tells me. What I may think is a separate matter. I also think it's problematic if the goal for the developers is, per the comprehensive plan, to be hooked up to water. They can't be.
Let's drop the water
Okay.
for a second, because
All right.
we don't own, as a city, the water company. We can only build where we can and then invite them to come in and plug in, because I don't think
Certainly.
anybody in Spring Hill Acres is on city water right now. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so can we drop the water subject for a second there?
Okay? I'm merely pointing it out.
No,
because
I understand.
it is in the comprehensive plan.
Yes.
I think that if you are pondering any preliminary approval, I would make two remarks. One, and I know this remark is going to be problematical for the developer, I understand money, and that is that there's a reason why in the ordinances a dead end or a cul-de-sac has a limit of 30 homes in a development with a cul-de-sac. Now, we may be faced with them getting around that because it's a loop, not a cul-de-sac, but there is a limit for 660 feet for 30 homes. I think there's a reason from an engineering perspective why that limit is there. I would implore the commission to table any decision today until these other studies have been completed. If you preliminary approve this, any future hearing you have will be closed to the public.
And why is that?
That's what the ordinance says.
The ordinance says the final plot will not be a public meeting?
The ordinance says if there is preliminary approval, that the further hearing to review any of the remediations or changes made by the developer shall not be a public hearing.
Well, I wasted a lot of time then because I do a lot of final plots.
I'm not sure they're the same thing.
The public meeting does not have to allow the public to participate.
Thank you for the clarification.
I didn't hear
I
the
was going to say, did everybody hear that?
No.
Would you repeat, please?
It's a public hearing.
Your
It's a
name,
public
please?
meeting.
Your name, please?
I'm Jeremy Skinner, city, used to be the city planner, now the community economic development director for the city.
Can't hear you.
We're going to get you a mic, Jeremy.
I'm Jeremy Skinner. I'm the Community and Economic Development Director for the City of Warsaw. I was prior in Justin's position. The Plan Commission, the final plat, like I said, is a public meeting, which is that you're all allowed to come, but the Plan Commission does not have to allow you to participate in a hearing format.
Does that cover that, Counselor?
It does concern us, though.
While
But
you,
they could allow you to participate. I said they do not have to allow you to participate.
while you have the microphone, could you go over, because we keep vaguely referring to checkpoints, could you go over what the minimum requirements are to have approved at a preliminary plat so that people are on the same page?
I'll allow Justin to do that, and then if you have any questions for him or myself, I'll answer.
I got it. I got the mic. So there are general requirements. I listed the lot sizes. So the lot size would have to be a minimum of 875 square feet. Minimum setbacks for the front would be 25. Rear would be 25, and side yard would be 7. And the maximum lot coverage would be 45% in an R1. There are also
Justin,
other.
You gave the wrong square footage. You said 800.
Oh, sorry, 8,750 square feet. Sorry about that. For the lot size, minimum lot size, yeah. There are other considerations that can be made per the ordinance, such as street names. We mentioned lot sizes, building setbacks, street easements, the preliminary concepts for the sewer connection, stormwater connection, method of water, providing water to the houses can be considered as well. Let's see here. There was also a traffic study done in 2019 for that road through Maycog. It was a traffic count. And that showed that there was 518 daily vehicles traveling in that area. So it does seem like they would still fall under that threshold that was mentioned earlier, were there to be a 67% increase. Now let's see if there's any more considerations. And that there is a description of some of the considerations you can make in my comments. The valuation criteria for the preliminary plat, proposed conditions of the plat shall be subject to the following conditions, and you can go through those if you'd like. But it basically, I summarized it with my previous comments. But
Justin, I think the point of Diane's question was, as a commission, what are we voting on? The lot size?
So does this plat conform to the city's ordinances would be my interpretation of how you would vote.
And those ordinances and the approval process would include the lot size?
Setbacks, street names, method of conveying stormwater, those type of things.
So all of the environmental issues will be dealt with later?
Correct. So they would have to provide an idea of what they were going to initially do, and it would be reviewed on those grounds. Now, the final plat, they would have to get down into the detail. The engineering work would have to be done. So we'd have to make sure
prior to a final?
Correct. Prior to final approval, those systems would need to be finalized and designed. It's a little bit too much legwork to ask a developer to do that up front to design those systems because the engineering side of it is very expensive. So
at this stage, those are the issues that the commission is voting on for the approval of the preliminary plot.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. I have not closed it yet, so if you'd like to speak on that issue.
I would like to speak to that issue with regard to the preliminary approval, subject to certain changes. I'm looking at 4.421 of the ordinance that talks about that the Plan Commission shall consider the revised plan without a public hearing at the next meeting. That's what I'm referring to. Somebody needs to answer a phone. That's what I'm referring to. I do want to make a comment that's really intended to be a comment to address the costs that will be incurred by a developer. Let's assume that we all say, you agree, that we're going to go forward, we're going to approve this. The essential element or the elements within the ordinance have been met. I question whether or not we know enough. If I was on the commission, I would say, do I know enough about the stormwater treatment? I don't know if I know enough. Would I want this developer to spend all the money that will be necessary if at the end of the proverbial day, any type of plan will not help keep this lake alive? That's an awful lot of money to spend. So isn't it opening up, if there's a preliminary approval subject to certain modifications of this plan, you are committing this developer to spend a huge amount of money with the question still in mind, are we going to approve this if some of these environmental concerns that may be borne out by these homeowners hiring experts can't be addressed, cannot be ameliorated? Then the developer is out, all this time has passed. I would say, for the benefit of the developer as well as the homeowners who want more time to get these studies done, you do have the option of tabling a decision until these studies are done and making a decision that will give you more insight, particularly into the stormwater treatment and the impact of what amount of runoff that can't be addressed or caught in a stormwater system going into the lake will tip that over the edge, tip the health of the lake over the edge.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak in opposition? Yes, sir, in your name, please come forward.
I'll use the mic. My name is Dan Hepner. I'm a 20-year resident of Spring Hill and an adjacent landowner. In fact, if this is approved, I'll gain 4 new neighbors, if that gives you an idea of how sliced up these small lots are. I'm no expert. I'm just a guy who lives in Spring Hill, so all I can do is give you a couple observations. The first one's pretty local to my lot. If you're not familiar with Spring Hill and the ridge there, that's one of the highest pieces of ground in the county. It does move steeply down to water level in Pike Lake. The east edge of my property, actually beyond the edge of my property, is a very steep bank. Over the 20 years, it erodes back. I've been maintaining that hillside, even though it's not in my property. I'll lose that control of maintaining this piece of ground to 4 new neighbors. I don't know who's going to take care of that, but unless something's done, the ground will be in my yard because you have to maintain that hillside. And my second observation, and the more important one, is there are 2 sharp 90-degree corners going into Spring Hill. Those are blind corners. If you happen to meet a school bus coming from the other direction, one of you has to slam on the brakes and back up. You can't fit a school bus through there. Now, if these are affordable, small-sized homes, I'm assuming families, a lot of kids getting on school buses, I don't have to remind any of us here of tragedies that happen with that. Spring Hill Road is marginally able to handle the traffic it has now. You add this and it's going to impact it. And then, by my observation, the school bus traffic is dangerous. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan. I'm going to guess that looking at the audience, that we've pretty much covered everything that could be covered tonight on your behalf. Thanks, John. It's funny not growing up in this neighborhood, but I've been here long enough. I know too many people. Go ahead, please. Your name?
I'm Chris Bonifield, and I'm a 20-year resident, and we have one of the bigger lots here. But one of the things that I want to bring up is you guys own part of our yard. We have a weigh station, and we get the runoff of the roads, Spring Hill. And thank you, you guys are fixing our problem there. But that runoff goes straight down the edge of our property, right into the lake. Our lake is not healthy, and I'm really concerned about keeping it healthy. So Vanna, my husband.
And you're doing a great job, Dan, by the way. Thank you.
All right, show our property, honey. That's not ours. There we go. So it's right down there. So everything comes off the road, down our ditch, and straight into the lake. The other piece that I want Vanna to point out is we're looking at one of the parcels up there. We don't know what's going to happen to the other two. And we're afraid if you approve one, you approve two, and you approve three. It's not a safe place. When they were talking about the school bus, we've had a resident get hit by a school bus in our neighborhood. Those corners are tight. Brent Mock has the first corner. Brent, what is the distance? 22 feet. 22 feet wide. That's how wide the road is. It was built to keep us safe, but it's not built to keep 67% more traffic going through there. And keep in mind, Provident is right there. When we're going to town, guess which way we go? We go down Provident. We go right past that hospital. You've got ambulances who want to get to the hospital. You've got family members who want to get to the hospital. We just want to keep Spring Hill safe. We want to keep whatever if that goes in there, we don't think it's safe for them. We want to keep Spring Hill, there's 5Ks. People go to the pavilion, the health pavilion, they run their 5Ks through our neighborhood. It's not going to be safe for them either. We want to keep us and we want to keep our community safe.
Thank you.
I have one last question.
You promise.
I promise. It's a question, too. This is a question for the developer, actually. And Mr. Hepner is the one who brought this forward. I've addressed this loosely because I can't tell from the plan how they handle erosion. What he was talking about is the erosion. If you have ever visited this area, I suggest a field trip, by the way, that it is not addressed in the plan. The erosion would be from the backside of these adjacent landowners, and you could talk to this too. How is that going to be handled?
I think that's part of the process, that we go from preliminary to the next step. All right, with that, I'd like to ask all of you benevolent people, sorry, Dan, you're going to say something again, aren't you? Come on up.
I understand that addressing the problem I alluded to would be part of the process.
Yes.
But if it's a closed hearing, well, I can observe and not speak. How does that address
Okay,
the process?
but it's not going to be a closed hearing.
Okay, well, according to the...
I know what she said. I actually...
According to what's written, not what she said.
I heard. Thank you. The issues are important to us. I would like everyone to understand that. I have close connections to Pike Lake. And if you want to be on an unsafe street, join mine. I'm on Harrison. Yeah, so I understand. I feel your pain. And what we're trying to do is just do our jobs and what we're assigned to do by the city. And with that, that's what we'd like to proceed with. Now, we could say it's turned down. Let's not assume we're saying I'm not speaking for the commission and how they're going to go. But we're probably at the point now where I think most of the important issues are covered. I think there's a lot of questions out there, and I agree. I think we need a little more time on this, my opinion. So I think there are some things that need to be done. I don't know what the developer's next step is going to be and how much he wants to spend on that. I'm assuming he's probably got his own thoughts right now based on that. But with that, unless there's something really hasn't been said before, we're going to close this to the public. So with that, I'd like to thank you all for your comments, and we're going to proceed with the rest of the time we have for our job. So with that, we have a couple things to discuss among ourselves. We can make a motion, we can vote it up or down, or we could take a step back and think about this as we possibly need a little more time to study this. Now, I'm not a city engineer and I'm not an environmentalist engineer, but it sounded to me like we do have some issues before us that need to be dug in a little bit farther. So that's my personal opinion that I wanted to speak to tonight as the president of the commission. With that, we also have the open duty to do the next step. So we either vote on the motion or we take another course. With that, would anyone like to comment further? James?
Yes, I would. I am an engineer, and I am a water engineer. And I've had preliminary discussions about this site. The developer's engineer has in this plan the concept of using what's called a retention basin. A retention basin doesn't have a positive outfall, doesn't have a pipe that drains directly out. The intent will probably to have some type of an underdrain under that basin, which would act as a water quality feature, called a best management practice. So there's a lot of discussion out here about water quality and the runoff. There won't be any direct runoff. If there's any runoff, it's filtered. I have looked at the soils out here. This site is very conducive to a retention basin system. There's good soils that drain well. So I'm not concerned about the volume of water that would come off of this for two reasons. One, the soils are there and the intent is to go retention. The second is we don't have the infrastructure of a direct pipe to the lake available to this developer. They'd have to run it all the way to the lake, and we just wouldn't let them do that. So if they had a need for a direct runoff, it would be extremely limited because of the infrastructure we've already got in the ground. But we're aware of the issues that are here, and we wouldn't allow on this particular site a detention basin, for which there are no stormwater control features in your subdivision, by the way. I mean, we're pinching this guy, or wanting to, but your water runs directly into the lake as it is now. So we will, as a city, we've got criteria. If we get that gully washer, I think that was the non-technical term I heard spoken. Yeah, we do have criteria in the city where we control the 100-year developed runoff down to a 10-year developed release. But there will be no release the way they intend to approach this. So they'll be required to contain that 100-year runoff on site. I have looked at those lots 1 through 17 range. I'm a little curious as to how they're going to get that water to go back up to the other area. They may end up with some type of a basin system along that, a shallow, narrow, long basin system to hold that water. We're at preliminary stage, and I can say that from the preliminary and the stormwater side, their designer is on top of it. He has demonstrated to me he understands the restrictions he's got on the site and what he's going to need to do. So I don't feel water quality or water quantity is an issue that's got me concerned at this point.
Thank you, James. Anyone else on the commission who'd like to speak? Yes,
Jim,
sir,
does that relate to the Deeds Creek as well as to the lake?
This has nothing to do with Deeds Creek. I mean, the study that's being done on Deeds Creek is coming from the other direction.
Right, but I think that's a concern that's out here, so I just wanted you to say that.
Say that again. I mean,
The concern would be whether or not any of the runoff was going to also go into Deeds Creek,
Yeah.
or whether it would go directly into the lake. So I think that, or not directly into, but be filtered through to the
Yeah.
lake. So I just wanted you to make a statement about that,
Right.
please.
The contours of this site won't push water towards Deeds Creek. It'll be contained on site.
Thank you.
Jim?
I have a lot of comments on this, and I appreciate your input, Jim, from an engineering and water use standpoint. I was a lifeguard on Pike Lake 60 years ago. Right now I'm on Brubaker Street, which is pretty tight. But that water then was clear and crisp and cold and that's where we went to take scuba diving lessons because of the underwater visibility. I've owned property on Pike Lake for 16 years now, and I've watched the quality of that water deteriorate. I am going to withhold any positive vote on a preliminary approval from my own standpoint, and encourage the rest of you to think about this also. I don't think this is a really good fit, even if we are able to jam all of the comprehensive plan details into 48 lots that are smaller than the surrounding lots, aesthetically not compatible. There are traffic issues. There are things we're not looking at. 48 individual wells poked in the ground. We've got not only this 12-acre site to consider and the runoff, and there will be runoff, but 10 acres to the north, another 10 acres to the east. Now, I think we need to take a harder look. I will not say I wouldn't vote in favor of it, that all of these issues were adequately addressed. But right now, I don't like the overall look of this project at that location.
Related to what, Jim, you know, we are looking for lifeguards, by the way. Parking lot. 15 an hour. Get your speedo out. Yeah, great comments by these gentlemen. I'm looking at the charge before us, and I think A and B, as I look at 513 that Justin's given to us, I see that. Justin, I don't see on the preliminary, they're supposed to have public parkland. I've looked everywhere, maybe I've missed it. They don't have anything identified there, and I think in the preliminary they need to do that. That's one of my minor issues, but I don't see it, and I'd like clarification. Building setbacks, I'm sure. James, I appreciate your comments, and again, at the neighborhood meeting, I tell you, usually these developments, I've sat through as a layman and I've listened. It's a whole different world when it comes to water management, and it's better for everybody. These lots, in theory, and at the end run, I know Jim has said water's going to get there, are not like the other 70 lots that you're living on that go into Pike Lake. We just don't allow it. We do everything we can to prevent it. And so the preliminary stage, I'm comfortable at this point, although again, there's another day, Jim, with letter E. Letter F, okay, it says where the preliminary plat covers only a part of the subdivider's entire holding, a sketch of the prospective street system of the unsubmitted part shall be furnished. He has provided, this is all he has, 48, he's shown us the infrastructure or street system. I am concerned, like Jim is, there's R1 acreage to the north, okay? Restrictive R1. I don't think it's going to be a field or a cornfield, all right, for the next 100 years. R1 means R1 development. My concern is infrastructure to get into the properties to the north. This will be Spring Hill Road and Robb, and I think to the north there's ingress or right of way I'm just looking at it, I'm guessing that would be another 40, 50 acre development. Everybody has to come in on Spring Hill and then on Robb, okay? And it could even develop more to the north. It's all R1, which is to everybody's advantage, but it is property that could be developed. As I look at the last part of letter F, it does say this: a sketch of the prospective street system of the unsubmitted part shall be furnished, and the street system of the submitted part will be considered in light of the adjustments and connections with the street system of the part not submitted. Now, I'm assuming that that's within his development, but again, they're entering Spring Hill. This is all part of the development. And my concern would be, like everybody here, I was riding my bicycle when I was a little boy in this addition. Almost bought, if I would have made more money, I would have bought a house. I was looking years ago. This is going to have the beginning and potential further development, which we want. Okay, we don't want cornfields in the city limits of Warsaw. It's all good, but development is what we want. this is going to put all kinds of pressure on the existing neighbors. That's why there's 100 people here tonight. And we rarely have this. They're very concerned about that and the pressure that we're going to be placing on Rob. No sidewalks. So we're going to make the new development, you have to have sidewalks. You have to have those things, but it's not going to be, what is it, a half a mile drive to get there. It will be further if there's more development to the north. That's a major concern for me. And cost to the developer, the Warsaw Traffic Commission, that's supported by taxpayers. It might be good, related to your concerns, to let the Traffic Commission look at it. I know that there's been discussions with the chief who's here tonight and others, can we have it? But the bus incident, okay, absolutely frightening. Riding a bicycle, all of that that's going to continue to go on with no sidewalks. Sidewalks in this one, but no sidewalks and all the different curves for that lake house neighborhood. That is a concern of mine. I believe, the layman in me, I believe letter F, I may not be on solid ground, but the letter F is connected to infrastructure, roads, sidewalks. And I don't want to say touchy-feely, I did not say that. All right, but the feelings in the way.
Just for the record, Jeff, that's the third time you've said touchy-feely.
But it is a reality that I think a formal look by the Traffic Commission, and then, again, I've been around long enough, Main Street, Hodge, my district, which part of this neighborhood is adequate infrastructure, which is sidewalks, curb and gutter, and they don't have that. And we're going to start putting pressure, and if this development comes in, notice there isn't a road to the north, okay, because they don't control it, but I've seen it where, okay, there's going to be further development. We don't see that. It's going to be on Robb Road. And that is a legitimate concern that they have, and out of respect for that, I would like more information. So,
can I make a recommendation, sticking my neck out here, that possibly this should be tabled for a while so we could dig into this just a little bit further? I for one, am like to see some more information as well. Yes?
I guess I'd like to ask Jeremy, since you got one. Jeremy, when do these issues normally get addressed? Before you grant preliminary approval or between preliminary approval and final approval?
The bulk of it would come between the preliminary and the final.
I couldn't hear that.
The bulk of the information that they're requesting would come before the final. Keep in mind, you're asking.
The preliminary and the final, you would address these issues. That's typically what we've done.
Yes.
Okay.
Now, a preliminary plat can be
That
changed.
mic isn't very good. If you can hold
A
it.
preliminary plat can be changed from the preliminary to the final, depending on the outcome of certain studies and design requirements based on the city. Now, what Jeff is requesting is a little bit outside. We did meet with the developer and we did talk to him about the various issues you were talking about and whether or not to extend a road to the north or to allow each of those areas as they were to develop to come off on their own road. Certainly that is something that the Plan Commission can review and say, we would like that connectivity. The thing is, you have to, if you're going to table it, is you're at some point going to have to provide him the details to meet your needs. You can't just table it and say, well, come back with something else. You're going to have to direct him and say, okay, if I'm going to table it, I want to see a connection to the north. I want to see, if there's some traffic concerns, what issues are you asking him to solve or the city to solve for that matter? Because the reality is the traffic concerns to me are negligible. You're talking about.
That's what he's going to do. Go ahead. Jeremy, keep talking.
Yeah, you're talking.
Okay, guys, come on now.
You're talking about.
We're all neighbors.
48 houses, potentially. What is it? A little over 2 trips per day generated by the residential household.
What's the average trip? with the 71 houses that are currently in the neighborhood, the traffic study in 2019, before the pandemic and everything kind of shut things down, was 518 cars average per day. So that's a little bit lower than the number we got here with the of 10, but it's up there. So even with those additional vehicles, the 48 houses, it would still be well under 1,000 car trips per day based on this study.
The point being is a residential street is capable of handling a significantly more traffic than what this currently has on it, largely due to the fact that this area is a lot of large lot development.
Okay, before you sit down, I got another one. Mr. Hepler, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, I've been on this thing way too long, the committee,
Commission.
or something like that. Anyway, all that to say that I would not wait until a final hearing, whatever happens here, before you get involved. You should get involved, and everybody else. You should get a core group together, and you should meet with the city planner right away and be involved through the whole process. That's the way to do it. Don't show up at the last minute and say, we'd like to, ask a few questions. You have every right to be involved all along, and these are good people. They'll do that for you and keep you involved in the loop all the way so that you get your questions, answered. Don't wait till the last minute. Be involved right away.
Since you addressed me, may I address you?
Sure.
All right. Our distinguished fellow here says that this church street does handle that traffic. I don't know that he lives in the neighborhood or drives that street. My observation is markedly different.
Okay, I'll address you back since you addressed me. We're just having fun here. No, you can sit down. You don't have to stay.
No, that's fine.
I'm an old man. I got a bad back. I got a similar situation, and I'll get my angst out right away. I live right over here. We got more houses going up on a smaller amount of land right there at Madison School. My life is going to change. I'm between two of those roads where everybody's going to be going down there. When I ride my bike out of there, I'm going to be real careful now because we're going to have more traffic. And then we all say, well, can't you go somewhere else? The problem is there is nowhere else, not in the city. The land, Jeremy will tell you, the amount of land available is very limited. That's why they're using the playground where my kid used to, I'm still mad because it took Madison away.
This then is your chance to not repeat the same mistake you have in your neighborhood.
Well, I don't know it's a mistake. That's my point. I'm used to no traffic. I've had it good for a lot of years. I've been there for 43 years. But it changes. People want housing. And, a lot of things have changed over the years. I didn't like them, but I learned to live with them. Now, everybody's entitled to opinion. I just do not have that. But, it's going to move forward. Ultimately, the only real answer is nobody ever does it. This goes back to Rolling Hills when they never wanted, duplexes and churches out there. You ought to buy the land. I don't know if Bruce ever put the land up for sale, but that's the answer. Buy the land. That's the real safe way to do it.
We tried.
Yeah? There's not enough money? Yeah. So anyway, I'm way off topic. Jeremy's going to fire me, and but you can't fire a slave, right?
No, I'm just saying, in general, you have before you a preliminary plat. Does it conform to the subdivision ordinance? If there are questions about its conformity, then you can ask them of us to clarify. If there are things that you want to see changed, like a connection to the north, you can request that as part of the final plat. You can approve it subject to them addressing a connection to the north, to that acreage to the north, which is also residential, which people will try to develop based on the ordinances that we've passed and whether or not it conforms to those. We do not dictate what a cost of a house is. And Joanne Kobe being an attorney certainly understands the rules and regulations about trying to dictate what a cost of house is. There's plenty of court cases to prove that you don't go down that road. So as far as lot sizes, the R1 zoning district is what it is. The lot sizes are what they are. Whether or not someone has a larger lot size next to you is immaterial because the zoning ordinance was created. R1 is the lot size it is. We can talk about half acre, 0.9 acres. It's immaterial. The referenced material you have, the ordinances you have, dictate that it has to be X amount of size, which these lots meet.
Thank you, Jeremy. Okay, again, Commission, do you have any further comments?
I still have trouble with E. I don't feel like the preliminary plat totally addresses the method for providing for stormwater, and I understand what our city engineer is saying, and I respect him. I don't see what's going to happen with lots 1 through 17. And if there's going to be an open ditch back there, I think in order to deal with stormwater, I think the landowners need to know that that's, you know, the adjacent landowners need to know about that and be able to address it. So I'm just not seeing how that part of the, I mean, you can't make water run uphill unless you're going to put some kind of pump in there in order to pump the water into the retention pond. So at this point, for me to approve the preliminary plat, I'm having trouble because I don't feel like E was addressed satisfactorily for me. On C that Mr. Gross brought up, I don't believe that every subdivision is required to have parkland, but if they are going to have parkland, it needs to be designated. So I would assume that because there is no parkland on here, there wouldn't be any green space for use of the community at this point, that the developer's not planning anything of that part. Am I correct on that?
That's correct. If he were, or if we were requesting parkland or he was wanting parkland, he would have to show that on the plat so that we could either I as a city accept it or modify it.
So, I mean, I understand that while we may not consider the lot sizes congruent with the rest of the neighborhood, that they're meeting the minimum requirement. I understand the setbacks. I understand the 45% lot coverage, but I do not see, for my satisfaction, what's going to happen with some of the stormwater. I can see the section up above where the pond is proposed, but I'm not comfortable with it as it is right now. So that's either something that we can, if we table it, ask the developer to directly address, correct, or we can pass a preliminary plat and ask the developer to address it. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah. I mean, keep in mind, the preliminary plat is supposed to lay out the lots, the lot sizes, the right-of-way, and you're supposed to look at it and say, does this conform? Yes. There's a, I don't know, 10-page development plan that they have to then proceed with after that formal adoption of the preliminary plat, and do the lots meet those requirements? Approving the preliminary plat is not saying this is approved. It's saying the lot configuration that we've looked at could conform to the development plan that needs to be presented. It's up to them to then take that and present the development plan to answer all your questions.
And I know that you submitted it as a preliminary and final plat, but I'm hoping that you're hearing that it's
This isn't
not
a
quite
final
meeting
plat.
what
No,
we
this is-
need for
No,
a
that was
final.
the first one we covered. This is only a preliminary.
But on the bottom of our information, it says
Did I
both preliminary
misunderstand
and
everybody's
final.
comments?
And I know that we're not voting on both tonight, but
Right.
I'm hoping the developer is hearing that we're not quite there yet for us to be comfortable.
Justin, was that a mistake in the earlier comments?
Oh, it says, it's just under attachments, it just says preliminary and final, but it's only preliminary. The rest of the document is only, they only applied for preliminary, they're only seeking preliminary.
Okay,
What we
thanks.
call an honest mistake, I believe.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to make sure that.
Well, we weren't going to vote on a final, I can guarantee
Yes.
that.
Well, I know we're not going to vote on it, but also that as it stands, it's not acceptable as a final plat.
No. Yeah. Well, they have to actually build the road before you could approve the final plat.
True.
I'm still concerned with the street system connected to this development and future development. It is so frustrating to think that a half a mile of Spring Hill and Robb now, and more in the future, people using that to get to this addition, they will have sidewalks. They will be able to safely go through this 40-acre or 48 property development. Prediction, no child will be allowed to ride their bicycle on Robb Road, any parent that has a lot in this addition. They won't. They'll tell them, don't. Let the other kids, the developed area, that is now the thoroughfare, Let them ride their bikes to our addition, or let's drive to the addition so we can safely walk. That's the frustrating thing. I realize that it can. I agree with you. It can handle the traffic. The question is it in the best interest of this developed neighborhood that's looking at a ton more development? That's my concern. And I'm seeing street system in light of connections that they haven't submitted. I know it's for future development, but let's talk about what we see getting to that development now. The traffic commission, the street department, I've seen engineering. Can sidewalks go in there? What would it look like? I mean, Main Street, Hodges Addition, we've done it. We're now, right now, with the sidewalks all the way to town from Lincoln Elementary School, so at least they can see it. The 100 that are here, and then the councilman, but I'm trying to keep my plan hat on, that's legit. That is a legit in item F. It is for me. I'm wrestling with it.
So, Jeff, if I can interrupt.
Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
I think what
My name's Charles Russell.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You're talking, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, help me. Yeah.
So what I've heard for the last little bit is, you as a board as a commission have three choices. You could approve it, you could deny it, or you can table it for more information. And as Jeremy said before, I think you all have concerns that the city engineer seems to be satisfied with the waste or the runoff plan, but you could ask for more detailed information for each of you so that you could be convinced of that or not convinced of that if the opposition wants to do that. I might suggest at this time that you do table it to ask for maybe more information from the city about what the plan might be with the traffic on Robb Road and there on Spring Hill Road. So I don't hear people wanting to say no, but I don't hear people wanting to say yes. And you do have that option today to just ask that there be some more information. But you do have to specifically give the remonstrators and the developer the opportunity. It's just not to buy more time. It's to actually ask for more information and be specific about what information you as a commission would want to be able to make a better decision to answer those questions going forward.
And I think
So that's what I would
Jeremy's point.
implore you to do
Right.
today, if you're not prepared to vote yes or vote no, is to come to a consensus amongst you of what information you would need at the next open hearing to move forward, and
And
ask for that to be provided
and
at
I
a
would-
certain time.
I would caution you a little bit, and Scott can correct me on this.
Mike,
I'll caution you a little bit, and Scott can correct me on this, but there are specific within the preliminary plat of what is required. So if it has to be germane to that, if you're asking him to do something that's required in development plan or in final plat, then you're stepping outside of our own ordinance, and you're giving him cause to seek legal services. So our preliminary plat clearly states what he's to provide to you. If he's done that, or if there's, like I said, if you say, I'd like to see that connection to the north, that's absolutely requestable as part of the preliminary plat.
And it's requestable to see more detailed stormwater, or some kind of stormwater
I think
plan
you
for
have
that
your
area.
answer, Diane. I think you have your answer.
Comes in
Whether or
the
not
final.
you think it's feasible or not, James has given you the information necessary that is required for the preliminary plat. Does he need to see the final design? Yes. And that is part of your development plan and your final plat. Yes.
In the traffic study, are emergency vehicles included?
yes.
Points to 1 point. We had a school bus hit a car on the 90-degree turn. We need services from the fire department at that point in time for EMS or police. They're not getting there, period.
With or without condition, if the road's blocked by a tree, the tree will have to be moved before anybody can gain entrance from the other. Even car accident or any blockage to the road, with or without the additional facilities, it's the same.
Yeah, I mean,
So if you've got room to get around an accident in the road, you can't go around it to provide emergency service.
You know, John, sorry. Yeah, and we've already closed it 3 times now. I think your points are well made. Living on Harrison, 5 houses from the hospital, my trees have blocked the road. I don't like it, but there's not always, I can't tell when it's going to fall. It never mentions that in the morning when I'm walking by. Okay, back to the closed session to the public and the commission. I think we really need to do something with this at this point. Now, Jeremy's pointed out that if you do table it, we have to be very specific about what we're looking for next, and I mean very specific. It should be done in a timely fashion. I think we have to deal with only the subjects that are in front of us. So, with that, we need to look at approve, decline, or table, and be specific about the table. But we need to do something. So, with that, why don't I do a quick check? How many are in favor of tabling it at this point? Well, that seems to be enough. I would like to thank everybody for their input. I would like, yes.
Okay.
And I was kind of hoping, looking at you, you might do that.
No, because I think whoever's asking to table it has to say specifically what it is they want to do.
Yes, they do.
And I'm not the guy.
You're not the guy,
I'm
all
not
right.
the guy. I'm just the,
Who wants to do the table motion? Jeff, were you thinking?
Well,
of-
I'll move the table, and what I'll do because of the discussion, letter C, I want to know if the developer is or isn't public use, park, whatever. I want that explained at the next meeting, whether they're doing it or not. Right now, I don't see it, and I'd like them to explain to me why they're not that they have to. Letter E, it does say proposed methods of providing for stormwater. It doesn't say detailed, it says proposed methods, but I would like more information from our board member, our expert, as well as the developer, just to give us a better idea of how and what that terminology looks like. I think it'd be good for the board, and it would be good for the residents that are here. And then item F, I'm still stuck on, this is a very old neighborhood. It's a unique neighborhood, half-mile run on a current traffic system that I would argue, okay, it can handle according to what the experts tell us. But the changes that will happen, not only here, but future, which has nothing to do with it. That's where I feel bad. It's nothing to do with this developer, but the charges in letter F, if they control the land. They don't, but my feeling is if 48 homes go in, the R1 to the north is going to be even more attractive.
Jeff, we need to, if you're making a motion.
So I'm making a motion, I've said E, so F, I want more information on the traffic system on Spring Hill and Robb leading in, and I also want information if there is development to the north, how that will work, how it will be connected. Where are the connections? How do you get to those properties to the north? This developer is not having any access on their property to the north. It'll have to be off Robb Road. So how's all that going to work?
So is your motion additional information on C, E, and F?
Yes, is that okay?
That's okay. I'll second that.
Motion made, seconded by Diane. All those in favor of tabling it with these exceptions, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone in opposition? Thank you all. Yes, Scott. Council just recommended we pick a reasonable time frame. With that, Justin, do you have a suggestion for that? Next meeting is a month away. Is that sufficient?
Depending on the specifics of the traffic study they're requesting, because we don't really, I would be curious to talk with the members in favor of tabling to see what specifics they would want on the traffic study, then I could recommend a timeline.
But why don't we shoot for 4 to 8 weeks as a reasonable time frame? If that is an exception, we can let the public know.
Yeah, we could evaluate that after we get into it and say, we'll shoot for the next meeting.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have tabled it. We're looking at a time frame of 4 to 8 weeks for the discussions to take place. You will be notified if we can't make that deadline, and I think that 8 weeks should give us a sufficient time frame. I'd like to thank you all for your participation. I think these were great comments, and I'm speaking for all of us. We love Warsaw. It's a great place to live, and we all want to stay here. We just don't want to get in the way of too many things, and we don't want bad things to happen when we do. So with that, thank you all. We have one more motion to make.
I move we adjourn.
Second.
So moved, seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Anyone in the audience wants to stay, you're welcome to. We're in adjournment. Scott? We have a better job at that.
Hey, Diane.